Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 6th of November. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by a bleary-eyed Joshua Barry after a bit of a firework display last night down your neck of the woods, Joshua.
Yeah, fireworks kept me up, Derek. So I ended up, instead of getting up early to watch the game, I watched it back at until about 2:30 in the morning. So it was a good game to watch. Good game to watch back, though. I think that, rightly a lot of positivity surrounding Rangers after yesterday, and quite an interesting game. Probably one where you look back and you think actually they were completely in control for the whole of that game. I think there's probably still some nerves because at Hampden it's not as if it's been a place of consistent success over the last number of years, has it? But I think a good step in the right direction. I think if you read Chris's piece today, sums it up pretty well. Clement at full time was a pretty composed figure. No big celebrations. No big celebrations in his post-match press conference about making a final. Just focused on winning the next game. So, I thought it was a pretty good day all round and a good step forward for a team who've struggled not only in the cup competitions, but specifically in this cup competition.
Yeah, Rangers making the final where they'll play Aberdeen on the 17th of December. Before we look into the game in more detail, just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, the MPH Group, Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialist covering all of mainland Scotland. Every service you opt for automatically enters you into their incredible holiday giveaway. You could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico, and they've also got a cracking winter boiler deal that's running at this moment in time as well, where you get a free high thermostat, free first-year service, up to a 12-year warranty, magnetic filter is included, and flexible finance options as well. The all-important links are in the description below, so if that is something you're thinking of, folks, do go and check the guys out. They are top drawer. Right, let's talk Rangers, Joshua. You were at Hampden yesterday for us alongside Chris and Stevie. Great coverage as ever. Do go check out the videos, folks, if you haven't already done so. Rangers, pretty much a game of two halves. You could say, Josh, I know they controlled for large parts, but 15 minutes in that second half, Rangers blew away Hearts with 3 goals. James Tavernier with a penalty. And then Scott Wright came on for Todd Cantwell. I know there was a few raised eyebrows at that substitution, but a fantastic finish from him. A tactical change, Philip Clement said. He wanted to manage the minutes of Todd Cantwell and Scott Wright, and says they'll both get opportunities in the coming games. And he also touched on that Cantwell was on a yellow card as well. So he lashed one home for 2-0 on 55 minutes. And then a Tav special from a free kick, an absolute beauty from the edge of the area to pretty much wrap things up. Lauren Shanklin converted a penalty of his own later on when Ben Davis was adjudged to have fouled Kingsley in the penalty area after a VAR check. But that's how it finished. Rangers progressing to the final, where they will play Aberdeen, as I mentioned, on Sunday the 17th of December. One to look forward to. I know Philip Clement, I loved his answer in his post-match press conference and interviews, saying that he's only focused on the game on Thursday. I love that attitude. I know that a lot of supporters are very much on the Philip Clement train at this moment in time, Joshua. But it was a game yesterday. Was it ever in any doubt, do you reckon?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so much to get into. I think Cantwell's position's an interesting one, the topic of Clement. But if we start looking through what was different in the first and second half, I think you're right, Derek. I think in some ways it was a game of two halves. Rangers, I think, were in control for the full game. Clement said pre-match that although Hearts, effectively to Rangers TV, said although Hearts might approach this differently, they won't have an early goal, they won't be away from home, so they can't. I think the phrase he used was park the bus in front of the 18-yard box, which was true. They had to come out a little bit more. I thought the game was a story of Rangers struggling to break Hearts down when the game was slow. If they got the ball quickly to Barisic on the left, and they did so in the first 5 minutes, and Clement twice turned away in frustration at his bench when the ball went backwards instead of forwards. He's clearly a little bit more concerned with disrupting the defence than retaining the ball. Not as fussed about. Some managers will want to keep the ball at all costs, won't they? And they won't mind a backwards pass now and again. But I think Clement probably is somewhere in the middle of that. If they moved it quickly to the left, Barisic had space and time to hit the ball in behind the Seema. If they did it slow, then Barisic had to cross, and throughout crosses bore no success for Rangers. Again, I think you saw the good and the bad of it. If we take a couple of examples here, Derek, this is one. This is one example, and we'll come on to speak about Cantwell's position later in the show, perhaps. But this is one example where the ball was won back on the left, and Barisic, again, it's not to single-handedly pick out one individual player, because I thought defensively did a good job. He prevented an area where Hearts were strong last time, with Sibic and Shanklin dropping to the right. But I thought too often in the first half, Rangers didn't quite have the tools to break down Hearts when they were in a low block. They did on the right, and there was those moments where Cantwell and Lammers twice got in behind with Tavernier, and they created quite good openings. But especially on the left, when they did have space, too often I think they resorted to crosses when they were in positions like this, and they probably had, here, Tavernier is a good passing option here, but Hearts had 4 centre-backs in that team, so they weren't really troubled with floated crosses. I thought the difference in the second half, if you look at the origin points of all the first goals, this is the lead up to Tavernier's penalty, and Rangers actually win the ball back and move forward quickly. It wasn't none of the 3 goals were a case of Rangers having full possession of the ball and playing forward and breaking down the defence. It was all kind of in moments of transition. It's the same here for that's in the lead up to the first goal. It's the same here in the lead up to the second goal. That was just after Rangers won effectively a defensive throw-in, and they get the ball over to Scott Wright on the other flank. And the third goal as well, they won the ball back really quickly. You can see them crowding Beningame here, and were able to get forward and get Scott Wright in the pocket. So I don't think it was so much that Wright came on and gave them width. I think he gave them more direct ball carrying in the middle. But I think the difference was, whereas in the first half, Rangers, when they broke into space, they didn't have much incision. In the second half, they did. Obviously, our first goal opens up. And I seen a stat recently, Derek, and I can't remember it exactly for the life of me, but it was effectively looking at the first stage of the Champions League of the Champions League group stage, and it was saying of the 25 goals scored that night, something like only 3 came from kind of concerted spells in possession for the dominant team in the final third. Now, we often speak on the show, I think Rangers supporters in general will speak about how do you break down a low block, and it's a difficult thing to do, and that's why managers all around the world, find it tricky to achieve that. I think one of the real underrated parts of doing that is being able to pick teams off when you do have these moments of space. Rangers are still, as I think the crosses show, when they get the ball in the final third, when they have possession, I think they're still too reliant on trying to chip the ball into the box and not necessarily playing to their players' strengths. And I think that comes with evolution of the fullback position. But what I think Clement has changed, and what I think was evident in this game, is when they did have space in the second half, with the help of Wright coming on, who was able to carry directly in the middle of the pitch, they were able to exploit that. And as you know, once one goal comes in a game like that, Hearts have to open up a bit, don't they? And it makes the game a little bit easier for Rangers. But they didn't stop after 1 goal or 2 goals. They didn't kind of play for control. They kept going. And I think that's what led to probably the excitement and the atmosphere of the game, because people could see, as was the case in Dundee on Wednesday night, even when Dessers wasn't pressing with full intensity, shall we say, in the 93rd minute, you had Clement going mental at him. And that was the same again in Dundee on Wednesday night. The message is to keep going over the course of the 90 minutes. But that's what I thought that the difference was. Rangers still have things to solve when they're playing against a deep defence, but they made much better use of that space in transition in the second half, and Wright's substitution definitely helped that.
Yeah, just on Dessers, Matthew Ross says, big film ballistic at Dessers in the 91st minute for not pressing the Hearts defence high. Brought me so much joy. It just shows you the demands from the manager. Just on Wright, I'll get your thoughts on that substitution shortly, Joshua. Gary Hillhouse with the point. Wright has actually been playing well under the gaffer. Hope he keeps improving and builds momentum. It's quite incredible, really. I mean, he took his goal so well yesterday. Thought he played well when he came on. We all remember him, that interview he gave at Glasgow Airport when he was jetting off to Turkey to sign for, was it Pendikspor or a team over there? Well, twice. Never quite happened. And then all of a sudden, he's helping to fire Rangers into a League Cup final. The turnaround in him since the manager has arrived. I know he was getting bits of games under Michael Beale. We all remember his last game in charge where he gets sent off at Ibrox in a toxic game against Aberdeen. Looks revitalised. He's not the only one under the new manager. But that substitution at half-time, Joshua, could you see it coming?
I thought it would be right for Lammers, maybe, although, we've spoken the lead up to this about why Lammers is important as well at set pieces, as Clement has said. So all these things, Cantwell also being on a yellow card probably came into that decision. Lammers, I think, had a pretty quiet game, but he still won the ball back for 2 of those 3 goals, or 2 of the 3 moments leading to goals in the second half. So I don't think he was ineffective. But Wright, I always think that he looks better in the middle of the pitch than he does out wide, because although he's really quick, he's more limited on the right-hand side because he's always trying to hit the byline. If you remember how he played when he first came to the club under Gerrard, it was obviously as one of those kind of 2 number 10s, and it allows him to get on the ball in kind of central pockets and drive forward. And that can be so dangerous, because I think this Rangers team don't have many ball carriers. And if you look around, someone like Raskin is a ball carrier, Cantwell is in his own right. But if you're thinking about players who are really pacey, aggressive, want to take players on one-on-one at all times, and that's their kind of primary, that's their super strength as a footballer, I don't think there's an abundance of them. And if you look around football, most teams have that just now. So I think it's quite unique, the way that Rangers' squad has been stockpiled. And Wright, Clement said he was going to give everyone a clean slate, and Wright's a perfect example of why that was the correct decision, because it looks like a player playing with confidence. He could have had another goal. He was hauled back, obviously, for Tavernier's free kick, wasn't he, when he got on the ball in a good position. And again, it wasn't as if he was playing wide, but he was just able to receive in front of the defence and drive at them. And that makes defences uncomfortable, doesn't it? Sometimes we can probably overcomplicate things, but if you've got someone who's really aggressive in that position and is going to run at teams, it makes it more difficult for them. And the finish, as was the finish in the Scottish Cup final a couple of years ago, is one of really high quality. So, yeah, he made a really good impact from the bench. Full credit to him, because I don't think many people would have seen that coming, especially after the sending off against Aberdeen. And not least the fact that it looked like he was out the door in the summer. I definitely think that Clement, although he says he's happy to work with the players he's got, and I don't think he'll be as hands-on from a recruitment focus, I think he'll still be looking at that squad and thinking, I need players, especially in that right side position, to give me depth. Because I think Cantwell in this team, we can come on to speak about that, Derek, but I don't know about you, I'm now coming more to the conclusion that I think he needs to play centrally. Although at times when the game is maybe Rangers have control of it and he can move a bit more freely, he has the space and the autonomy to pick the ball up in the centre. But there's no doubting his quality, and I still think he's Rangers' best player. And although Lammers has qualities as well, I'm someone who's spoken him up, and I think he probably will continue to play in that position at the moment under Clement. And this is an example of the squad playing a different style to the one it was kind of built within. But yeah, I think you want to get Cantwell in that number 10 position as soon as possible, because I just think his impact from the right is slightly lessened because he's right-footed and he's picking it up on his wrong side, and when he's driving inside, I think it's easier if you're a defence to force teams backwards if the players are playing on their kind of right side instead of cutting inside.
Yeah, I have Cantwell on my team over Lammers every day of the week. Lee Williamson with the point says, definitely don't think Lammers and Cantwell playing together is ideal. Just finishing up on Wright, Stephen Gillespie with the point. He says, Scott Wright's attitude and commitment has never been in question for me. If the boss can make a player, that really is a positive. Absolutely. On Cantwell then, Timothy Sharp with the point here. He says, Josh, you think Cantwell will fit into Clement's more structured style of play? As you just touched on there on the right-hand side, I don't think it necessarily suits him in that central position, though. In Sam Lammers' position, I think that will see the best of Todd Cantwell. But listen, Philip Clement knows more about football than what I do. What he's seen in training, he's selecting Sam Lammers for a reason at this point in time. He sees something in him. Could we see alterations ahead of Thursday night, possibly, Joshua?
I don't think the issue so much is Cantwell and Lammers together. I think that team, Hibs at home, for example, that structure works. When you're playing against a back five with 4 centre backs, I think you need more width. So if I bring up this example, Derek, in the first half, this is a moment where I think it was Cantwell and Danilo combined really well, and Danilo had that shot that went over, and you can see Cantwell's position inside here. You can see Tavernier wide. And this was, again, one of the examples where Rangers were able to create a chance because the Hearts defence wasn't quite set and they'd moved it forward quickly through the pitch. That's fine because Cantwell isn't playing out wide there. He's in a central position. He's close to others. I think you want to get him and Lammers close to one another because they're creative players, and that's what they were assigned to do. And there was the other moment which escapes me, but people will remember who watched the game, where Cantwell kind of turned and had that volley. There was a header he had at the front post, and there was examples of Rangers getting an extra man on that side, and then they're able to combine and break through. And here's another example here of Cantwell's positioning inside and Tavernier wide. So it wasn't as if he was always hugging the touchline like a winger. I think the issue comes more when Hearts do get back into that block of 5, because there's space in these two examples between the lines. When there isn't space between the lines, I think it then becomes more difficult. And if you're a left footer, you're more naturally kind of going towards goal. I think sometimes it's easier for you to break through a team. If you've got two right footers on that side and a player like Cantwell he always wants to come into the centre because he's just that type of player, isn't he? So I think against some opponents that setup is fine. It's clearly an area that Rangers have struggled with for a long time now. How they use the wide areas against teams. The crossing that we've seen, for example, last week against Hearts before that comeback was a game that you and I and probably everyone in the comment section, Derek, have watched 100 times before. So Lammers, as you mentioned, the manager likes him. I think that it's a relatively quiet game in the ball, won the ball back well for 2 goals in the second half. But I'm with you. I think Cantwell is still Rangers' best player. I don't think he's had a great season so far, and he's been injured. No. But he'd probably, I guess, maybe internally think, well, he's been moved around a lot. He's not had much consistency in his play time, much consistency in his positioning. I personally just think watching him that he looks more comfortable when he's moving off the left-hand side or when he's in that free role, and he has the autonomy to kind of move where he sees fit. I'm sure that the question is he going to fit into the manager's more structured style of play. I'm sure Clement will look at him and see his quality, and quality players fitting under any manager, I think. And it's not as if Campbell's a luxury player who doesn't work hard. I think we covered that when he came to the club. He's someone who does a lot of work off the ball as well. So probably just one of these things that will take a little bit of time, Derek. But I definitely think that kind of right-sided position is something that Rangers haven't filled for a long time because they've not needed to because of their style of play. I think it's something that they'll be looking to maybe do in the January or summer transfer window.
Interesting. There's so many topics to discuss with regards to tomorrow's game. I wanted to discuss the captain for a little bit, Joshua. Again, stepping up yesterday and delivering. The first half, his distribution at times wasn't the best. However, that second half, the real captain's performance, stepping up and putting away the penalty, terrifically taken penalty as normally is the case, and then the free kick was just absolutely sensational. I've seen clips doing the rounds on social media. I know Stevie took a little video in the press box as well, and I think it's Stevie Jukes on Twitter posted.
That was good, wasn't it?
On the top right hand corner. Yeah. It's absolutely brilliant, and then it goes right in the postage stamp. Brilliant. And the manager's comments afterwards on Tavernier. He was asked, how good is it to have someone like Tavernier in your team? It's not only about goal scoring because his first job is as a defender, but I like a collective way of attacking for a lot of people, and he's important in that way on the right side. He's also a leader by example in the dressing room, but it's difficult for me to pick out one player. The very positive thing for me is that we have several leaders in the dressing room. We have several leaders who have stepped up from the first day. It's an important thing as a manager to have several players in your dressing room who are your right-hand man, and Tav is one of them. What do you make of Tavernier yesterday, Joshua?
Same old. I think Derek just continually steps up. I think he's someone who is, Stevie and I spoke about it after the game yesterday. He's someone who, yes, he should have won more trophies. There's debate about whether some people see him as a Rangers Hall of Famer or not. I do, for what it's worth. I think he's someone who's been let down by the collective more than he's let his team down individually, and he just continually steps up. If you take that last week, firstly, Derek, I think the way that teammates speak about a player, that tells you a lot, doesn't it? The fact that how many managers now have people will say, he's been there, he's outlasted X number of managers. Again, I think that's circumstantial. How many managers have kept him in the team and kept him as a captain and spoken so highly of him because he is a leader. It's easier to, in Scottish football, shout at people putting a bad tackle and be seen to be leading than it is to step up and do what he did yesterday, to step up and do what he did last week. And if you look at, you need to take opportunities at Rangers. If you look at the last week, Tavernier takes that second penalty. That felt, to me, it felt like a sliding doors moment because I don't think Rangers have a chance of winning the league if they lose that game against Hearts. Not because mathematically what would have happened, but because it would have killed that momentum, it would have killed the belief. The next time that potential drop points happened, bearing in mind you've got to go away in the next Old Firm game, I don't think there would have been a belief, certainly from the outside, that it would have been capitalised upon. But he did, and yesterday again another big pressure penalty, and steps away and scores. I should mention there's a fantastic interview with him on the website that was done with the Sunday papers, where he breaks down in detail his penalty methods. Really interesting to read that, because you don't often hear players go into that level of detail. So I'll put it in the WhatsApp chat maybe after, which you can join us on the website. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm interested to see what you think about it as well, Derek. But I think it's just continually he's stepped up and defied doubts, led by example. And yesterday was I thought a really good all-round game. And the second goal, the free kick, the quality of that, which we've seen so many times before, similar to the Livingston one from you, where he has that fake wall and he puts it in the keeper's top right corner. But yeah, just another example of him stepping up under pressure and delivering. And I think the way that his teammates speak about him, whether it was Lundstram in the mix zone or others, speaks volumes of what type of captain he is to play alongside.
Yeah, we'll talk about Lundstram in a minute. In terms of free kick taking, I've seen someone debating whether Rangers have had a better free kick taker in their history. In my lifetime, I was blessed to see Jorg Albert step up a few times and lash one home. Paul Gascoigne could hit a free kick. Laudrup also, but I know some older players will say Davy Cooper could find the back of the net. But for me, in terms of consistency, every time he steps up, you're expecting him to hit the target, and a fair chance it's going to be a goal as well. I think he's been a revelation for Rangers in terms of numbers, goals, not only from dead balls, but he contributes so much offensively. I think he's really going to be a player that we'll miss when he does eventually depart the club. Another fantastic performance in the second half, especially from the captain yesterday. You mentioned there John Lundstram. You spoke to him in the mix zone afterwards, Joshua. His comments have certainly created a bit of a stushy online, it's fair to say. Just when he was talking about Philippe Clement, he says he's been a breath of fresh air. The mood around the place has been so much better. A few comments coming in. Sky Larker with a point. Lundstram's comments were very interesting. That wasn't just boilerplate new manager speak. Clement is clearly hitting the right note with the players. Absolutely. And Ross Nielsen with a point here. He says the comments on being a breath of fresh air makes you wonder how long ago Beale actually lost the dressing room. I don't think it's necessarily having a go at Michael Beale as such, Joshua, as opposed to, I think Philippe Clement came in and the players have just certainly bought into what he's trying to do from the off.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't personally, I didn't read it as a dig. I read it as a reflection of how good Clement's man management skills are. Yeah. I think it's just different. An interesting example that came to my mind, Derek, was the Todd Cantwell interview he did with the Beautiful Game podcast, which we spoke about at the time. He used an example, and he spoke really highly of Michael Beale throughout, and that was after Beale had been sacked. He used an example of, and he was talking about how difficult he'd found effectively the man management he'd received at Norwich, and he was comparing that to Beale, who something had happened, I can't remember, and Beale went and met him for a coffee in the afternoon. And Cantwell was basically saying, look, I'd have run through a brick wall for him, cliche, I'd have played it right back for him. So there's just different types of man management, and maybe the squad just needed or respond better to a different type. I don't know. I don't think there's always a good or a bad. If I was a player, I'd probably want more of the arm around the shoulder than the opposite. But Clement clearly is someone who, again, when we've used this example before, Derek, but in one of the pieces I did when he arrived, I spoke to people at his first club who told me stories of how he'd bring in psychologists when they didn't have them in-house to work with players, so he understood players on an individual level, so he understood how to manage them. Lundstram yesterday was speaking about how Clement focuses on the collective and not just the starting 11. He's clearly someone, and you see it when players come off and they have conversations with him for about 5 minutes on the touchline. He's clearly a manager who places a lot of emphasis on his players. I think he's probably quite a charismatic guy in places as well. And last week when he was speaking in his press conference, what he kept coming back to was how much he loves going on a journey with players, trying to make them better, trying to improve them. and I think all that comes together to show a manager who's an experienced manager and has been through situations like this before. Because let's not forget, two of the jobs he's went into struggling clubs in mid-season. So he's got experience of that. And I think you could tell that with Lundstrom, who is a player who's had difficult moments definitely over the last couple of years, never hidden, always been available. It was only a couple of, probably about a month ago, he gave away that goal in Aris when everything fell on the floor for Rangers and the word crisis was justifiably used. I think he looks much more like himself just now, more suited playing in a two. Still think at times when you're at home and you need to break down a defence, you want a more creative profile with the base of midfield. But Lundstrom is at the club in the first place because I think he can be a really dominant centre midfielder in big spaces, has a lot of qualities. He's powerful. He had that sprint in the first half yesterday, which was the fastest I've ever seen him move. And I think you can just see the impact that Clement has had in that dressing room. And I didn't read it as a dig. I agree with you, Derek. I just read it as a player being honest, which is nice when they speak to the media instead of just giving cliched answers. Being honest about what they feel about a manager, which is pretty evident from the outside as well, that Clement has made a big impact. And the mood after being so low, after being booed off all those times before Clement arrived, now does seem to be in a much better position.
Yeah, you can certainly see that he's enjoying his football again, and he's loving working under the manager, which is a good thing. I asked Chris last week, there was a comment that came in whether you would offer him a new deal. He's in his final year of his contract. I'm still one, Chris said at the time, we'll wait until May, but if he keeps up this level of performance, then it's a no-brainer for me. You're giving him an extended deal. So keep up the good work, John. Interesting other points that are coming in. Tom Lawrence, great to see him back yesterday. He came on. Joshua LC says, good to see Lawrence back and a good cameo, a great abrasion to win that tackle near the end. But another good option to have for Rangers. For the life of me, he's not... Is he part of the...
Yeah.
Is European squad? He is. Right, okay. Because that leads us on, because Philip Clement said it is a bit of a puzzle in terms of the Prague game about who you can select for that game. He says we'll still miss a couple of players. We'll also miss some players that I cannot select on Thursday because they are not on the European list that I didn't make in the beginning of the season. It is, again, a puzzle, and I expect everybody to be top because it's going to be a really hard game against Prague. But fantastic to see him back involved. In touch wood, Joshua, you can steer clear of injury.
Yeah, touch wood. Ridvan obviously didn't play, and Clement said he played his biggest load in 290 minutes in 4 days since he came to the club. And I think that was true. I also think it was true that he was targeted by Hearts last time. And as mentioned, where I think Barisic was too cross-heavy at one end, I think he did a pretty good defensive job at the other. But you probably would bring Ridvan back in for the game in midweek, judging by what type of game it's going to be, probably a bit more on the floor, and he obviously doesn't have the option to do that. Lawrence is there. He obviously got injured against Betis, didn't he, where he had a pretty good performance in one of Michael Beale's last games.
Right, yeah.
But there's 2 games until the next international break, Derek. You have a great chance at home in Europe to go and put yourself in a really good position in the group, and then Livingston away, which, although in my mind, I always think of Livingston away as a game that
they've got a good record there, Rangers.
Yeah, exactly, they do.
No,
but it's one of these games where you think,
great...
you think it's going to be a difficult game, don't you?
As Michael Beale used to put it, it's not going to win a beauty contest. So you're not going to be enthralled by scintillating football on that pitch, unfortunately.
Yeah, but Rangers have a great opportunity to. I think the mood, just speaking to people and listening to and reading the comments kind of on the videos and on social media, the mood seems better to me than it's been in a while, and that momentum is a powerful thing, not only in a game, but on a game-to-game basis. If Rangers can win these next 2 games over the next week, they'll put themselves in a good position. I thought yesterday was a great example of the work that's still to be done, but also the improvement that's been there, and big opportunity to win that cup. 17th of December, must win for Rangers, but on the basis of yesterday, I think the people going back to Hampden will have good reason to be confident.
Yeah, I've got to say, Rangers will take on Aberdeen. I was slightly taken aback by Barry Robson's comments over the weekend, saying obviously they play Frankfurt on the Thursday and he was criticising the scheduling of said game. I can't recall Philip Clement coming out. Rangers are away in Spain on the Thursday, so by all accounts, Aberdeen at home. They've not had a great Conference League campaign. It would be pretty much a dead rubber by all accounts. So they'll have better preparation, you'd imagine, than Rangers, who will be heading over to another country in terms of preparing for that game. But there you go. Something to look forward to, folks, next month. The Bum Sweat Kid, lovely username, says, does Big PC look like a bolder Del Clark? So handsome. That's very kind of you to say so. That no one has ever said that before, buddy, but I'll take that. Nice little comment there on a Monday morning. Just on free kick takers at Rangers, it is what it is, says Lorenzo Amoruso. He loved taking a free kick, didn't he? I remember when he came on for his Rangers debut at Parkhead and lining up a free kick from all of about 40 yards, which was quite incredible. Not too far away, if I remember as well. But yeah, he was capable of pinging one in the top corner or firing it into Rosette, Lorenzo. Yeah, he did fancy his chances from set pieces. But for me, Tav is the king from the dead ball situation. Right, folks, I think that'll do us there. Huge thanks to Joshua for joining us today. Some shift yesterday as well, Joshua, alongside Stevie and Chris. Great to see Stevie looking happy with the Rangers again. All is right with the world.
All is right with it. Yeah, you're right. He is. I think he's a bit more excited watching Rangers over the last couple of weeks compared to the rest of the season. So you can look forward to hearing from him. And Chris tomorrow, lots of content this week as ever. Obviously, we've got 2 games and then into the international break. So, yeah, if you've not subscribed, as ever, great time to do so. You can read all the content that's on the app today. Chris with a brilliant piece, kind of just summing up the mood yesterday, Clement's messaging and how that feeds into his overall approach from the start, what kind of culture he's trying to create. We'll have analysis from the game. If you remember, on the YouTube channel, we'll have lots of content this week as well there. So lots to keep you busy. And yeah, thanks to everyone for watching me and you chat about Rangers on a morning as ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a heads up, folks. We'll be speaking to Dave McCallum a little later on this afternoon ahead of the Rangers B team clash with Airdrie tomorrow night in the SPFL Trust Trophy. So one to keep your eyes peeled for. We'll drop that later on this afternoon when we speak to Dave McCallum. Right, folks, that'll do us there. Thanks to everyone for interacting with the show. The 2 offers on the website just now, £18 for an entire year, or you can take out the £4 for 4-month offer. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. Right, if we don't speak to you later, we'll speak to you tomorrow morning. Enjoy your Monday. Bye for now.